Fed Chair Jay Powell in testimony before Congress will suggest that rates could go higher, get there faster, and stay there longer than anticipated. He says it is likely that they will go higher than anticipated if data indicate the Fed is prepared to increase the pace of rate hikes. He also says restoring price stability will require a restrictive policy stance for some time.
Welcome back to the Warlords of Wall Street. Well, yesterday was as ugly as we thought it might be. Chairman Powell made it very clear that their data is pointing to not only do they have to continue to raise interest rates, they may have to continue to raise them for longer than they thought, not just maintain them at this higher level for longer, but that we may very well be looking at another 50 bip raise, which when he finally got to that part of his speech and testimony before the Senate Banking Committee, that was not what the market wanted to hear, is that there might actually go back to a 50 basis point and then maybe a 25 back again, or maybe another 50. But he made it clear that they may end up having to go higher than they originally thought, and that concerned the market, as well it should. Unfortunately, as I've mentioned in numerous of these podcasts, the Fed's book for dealing with inflation is outdated. It is marginally effective because it is such a blunt tool, just raising the interest rates. It just, as we've mentioned, it ends up costing the banks more to borrow money, which they pass that on to those who borrow money. And the way Wall Street finances things, everything goes up, which has no other effect than to lower earnings. Unfortunately, Wall Street, by its own temperament, it forces companies to continually advance its growth, or it punishes them by lowering their multiples. That's what we see happening right now, is the multiples are pulling back a little bit, maybe not as much as Wall Street thinks that they ought to be, but everything ends up trickling down. It's a hip bone connected to the knee bone kind of thing. And what ends up happening is that when these earnings are compromised because of the higher costs of operation, and costs of borrowing money is certainly one of them, because this affects everyone in the supply chain, layoffs happen. And when you've got productive people who already have a job and are contributing to society, contributing in the way that they tax, and the next thing you know, they're unemployed, but they have unemployment benefits, they still become either a payroll burden in one form or another to their companies and or the government's unemployment, but they're not producing anything in the economy anymore. So this becomes a narrative of, you go from what you think you want to accomplish, but in my mind, it actually makes things worse in the long haul. And if it means that we have to keep these prices, which we've clearly all settled into, whatever we're dealing with, we don't like it, the grocery store or the gas pump, but here we are. So what you're trying to argue to me, if you're up in Washington, is that we just need more people unemployed. And if there's more people, another 3 million people unemployed, then they won't be out there buying in the manner in which they're buying. And you're trying to argue to me that that's actually what brings inflation down. No, I'm just not buying it. And it's unfortunate that these models, that the generation of not only politician, which unfortunately politicians are not business people for the most part. They spend money like drunk sailors with no accountability. So it's unfortunate. Back in the day, the Federal Reserve Chairman, when testifying on the Hill, he could and would often tell Congress, you need to balance your budget. Your runaway spending, this deficit spending that you're doing, is actually making our job impossible. You're putting way too much easy money into the market. You're putting way too much soft money into the economy, and you're being counterproductive to what we're trying to do over here. And as I've said 100 times, The Fed's only tool is to play with interest rates, and that is a sledgehammer when a scalpel is needed. But unfortunately, we have no other choice but to watch them do what they're going to do. The inversion continues to grow larger between the 2 and the 10 year. Not happy about that. The odds are against us. Every time, and Powell's game plan now incorporates at least another 1% increase in unemployment. And there has never been a period in history when you went from wherever your line was today on unemployment and you added another 1% to it, regardless of the percentage increase that was, just looking at it in the simplest of terms, a 1% increase, 12 out of 12 times the economy slipped into a recession. Those are not good odds. And here we are again. And if Powell is successful and he thinks that this is what is going to be required to get inflation under control, he needs unemployment up over 4%. Well, that's a 1% jump from here. And I don't know how he avoids a recession if they continue to raise rates. And he is thinking that we may very well see that terminal rate closer to 6%, not the 5% we were just talking about, not the 5.5% we were just talking about, that they may very well take it to 6. That is not good news. And of course, there was blood all over the floor of the exchange yesterday when everybody was trying to wrap their heads around that. Powell is today still up on the Hill. He'll be testifying before the other house. And I don't know what could he say today that would change what was our understanding of what he said yesterday. But this becomes more of a dog and pony show today. And the only, I wouldn't say criticism that I have of Powell, unfortunately, politics are at play. And when politics are at play, politicians play. And Powell is resourceful and a bit of a politician in the sense that he won't criticize Congress like other Fed chairmen have. And I think the moment has come to where his passivity is actually making his job harder. And I'm getting the sense from Powell that he would like to go down in history as the first guy in 13 occasions that had to navigate something this dire in the economy without it slipping into a recession. Well, if you're a betting man, it's never happened before. Will this be the first time? I just don't know. But this is what Powell is hoping is his legacy, is that he ends up being the first guy who keeps us from sliding into a recession. And it's not that he has any economic hopes. We are at a place to where you still have good spending in the economy. It's not so bad. Your unemployment is at historical lows. That's not so bad. It seems that corporations, even with these higher interest rates, the banks, the borrowers that are looking at mortgages and what have you, things are slowing down, but they're not stalling like you would expect them to, considering the amount we went from 0 to 4.5% in a record short time, and yet nothing has truly stalled. So I see where Powell gets his hope from, and he's hoping that if he can continue to get people to listen that or be wary of what he's saying, which he's being very hawkish right now, that maybe the market will continue to do some of the work for him. And yesterday it certainly did. We'll see what happens today with more testimony on the Hill. We don't have much in the way going on until we get something substantive, which is the jobs report on Friday. That seems to be one of the indicators that Powell is leaning heavily on. Sadly, it is nothing but the Fed. That is the news in the market. Everyone will continue to argue it's a stock picker's market. It may very well be, but I don't know why you would want to jump in here right now and look at things. We certainly took a spanking yesterday on our financial holdings, our DPST. We got stopped out yet again. So the way I look at it is this little puppy took 5% from me the first time. It's taken 5% from me the second time, and now it owes me. So we're trying to figure out, is this the bottom? Yesterday we saw a 20 and change. Today it's still in the 20 and change. It's up about 1% where it hit the floor yesterday. Do we dare go back in again? I think I'm going to be willing to pay a little bit more to make sure that we have found the floor and that Powell's testimony can't affect the financial institutions any more than it did yesterday. That's really about the only observation I take from it, is that the financials are in a vulnerable spot right here. But that becomes an opportunity for us. If they're going to knock it down a little bit more, we're only going to be too happy to pick it up. But this is the name of the game. It took a couple of 5%ers from us. Now it owes us at least a couple of dollars back, and we can be even. But hey, if I liked it when it was at 23, why wouldn't I love it when it's at 20 and change? So I think the banks are going to end up being a real winner in this economy in the years to come as things begin to normalize and they can get back into business with higher interest rates than they have been able to charge for the great many years since we've been keeping it zero. I think a real rate around 2 or 3% is something that they would do very well in, and I think a lot of my colleagues on Wall Street believe the same thing. Well, today is one of those days. Watch the TV, listen to Powell, keep your powder dry. I think there's going to be opportunities in the weeks to come to maybe pick them up. And if we're going to make some moves, we will make sure that on Patreon we tell you what they are and when we do it, so that you can continue to keep an eye on us and see what our performance looks like. As we always say, as we sign off, take your profits where you can. Keep your powder dry. Be safe out there.